They explained to me that the stranger had been given a
Someone
familiar
watched this
face so
spooky
that I
video.
wouldn't be afraid. We talked a little bit, and then I asked, "How did you get that contraption up there since I didn't hear anything?" And he told me that even if all these houses were torn down, everyone
Hello,
would be
Daydream.
sleeping
How are
so
you?
heavily that no one would notice a thing.
My internet's being really unstable
just about
today,
to
so it
mention
might
that
go
there used
down
to
a
be a
bunch.
grand
I
house there,
apologize.
practically a manor, when suddenly
Version
he was
6.
no longer standing in front of me.
You're
He had
blue
moved
now,
almost
Faye.
instantly over to the craft. It was
I'm
as
doing
if a
good.
section of the egg-shaped
I
ship
think
had
I'm
been
getting
cut away,
sick, but I'm
creating
okay.
an opening, and from within,
So yeah, my internet's
beings
being
emerged.
bad today, so I might go down again.
They said,
my
"Do you want to come along?" At that moment, shock hit me so hard my knees nearly gave out.
Oh, God.
I turned around and said, "No, go away," because I was sure I was about to be
Where do I go
swept up
this
into
time?
something massive, like getting caught in a whirlwind, spun out of control,
It's the
and
egg
thrown straight into
aliens.
the unknown. And I wanted no part of it. Later, when
It's
I
been
left,
up for
they
a
told me
minute
they'd
right now. It's
return,
probably gonna go down soon,
just in
though.
another way.
But you guys can join the Discord if you haven't, and I'll
Toivo said it
message there when I
happened in
can.
July, though he hadn't kept any kind of journal about it.
The egg came first.
As for the craft, he described it as almost like an egg. Smooth, rounded, and featureless, except for some raised areas, almost like bolt heads, about 3 centimeters wide,
Bolt heads.
arranged in a precise, systematic pattern. He estimated it to be about 15 meters across and said he saw it from roughly 10 meters away. He didn't notice any kind of support structures, but a section on the side was missing. He assumed it was a sliding door. That's where the 3 figures appeared. 2 of them
Oh
were
my God, his
unfamiliar,
face.
but the third was the same one he had seen before.
Oh, the guy that was in
Then,
his yard.
in his own words, "So yeah, I was shaken, left the scene, and felt very strange, wondering
Never
what on earth
used
was going on."
yards. I mean,
A
I'm
couple
bad
of
with
weeks
measurements
later,
in general.
on a Sunday, the strange humanoid appeared again, walking around in Toivo
Oh my
Kovanen's
God,
yard,
that is so
just as
scary.
it had the first time. I immediately said, "So is this where you keep showing up?"
Did I seriously fix my net
I
just by
thought, this
switching it
time I will
off?
keep my composure. I will not be
I swear
startled.
it's gonna go down again.
I braced myself completely,
That's just
determined not to
Jeff.
flinch.
Oh
I
my
wasn't sure what
God.
kind of strange thing I was dealing with, but I figured it was one of the same devils that had been roaming around here.
Oh,
So I thought, now I'm going to see what
spooky
you really
devils.
are. He didn't touch me, but he came very close. He asked me, "Are you afraid?" I said, "I'm not afraid, but how is this possible?" He said that he couldn't explain it because I wouldn't understand.
What made you
I
a
asked if there were
VTuber?
many of us. He said,
I mean, I
"There
don't
are
know,
a
to be
few."
honest. I just like it.
I mostly wondered if there were others in Finland who had these encounters.
I like customizing.
Then he told me that I had been followed very actively since I was 17 years old. I thought, this must be something spiritual, so I asked if the Bible was true. He said, "Your Bible. It has some true aspects, but so much human interference has been mixed in that the good is hard to find." But he did say that there should be some fundamental truths in it.
Did I really fix it just by switching it off and on?
That
That's
was
so
the end
great.
of that encounter.
That's dumb. Why do I
Then
have to
came the third
switch it
time.
off and on?
Somehow he explained that I wouldn't be coming back here once I was freed from this, that I would become one of them.
Daydream.
I asked if
I
this
fell
meant they would
asleep
come to
beneath
fight
the
wars,
flowers
but he didn't answer.
for a couple of hours.
Then he said that even they were just at an intermediate level, that there was something above them as well.
Sometimes DNS gets fucked up.
At
Yeah,
that
maybe it
point,
was that.
our
Maybe
conversation
that's so
ended.
strange.
Then one winter, when my
It was
wife's
going
nephew
good
was
before,
visiting,
yeah.
the doorbell rang and I went outside. From about 4 meters above, a voice said that they would be coming to meet me, and they gave a specific date.
I still think it might
but
go
I had to
down.
be alone. So I told my wife that they wanted to talk again, so maybe she could go visit her family. But of course, she had her own say, and I couldn't force
How
her to
long do you
leave
need
the house.
average viewers for? I think it's... I keep forgetting.
Then, 2 days before they were supposed to come,
7 days,
my wife had
7
such a severe
streams
asthma
within 30
attack
days.
that she had to be
I think
taken
it's
to the
that.
hospital on Sunday morning. Then he came,
Baby Gronk rizzed
and
up.
there in that chair, he
did.
was. We talked, but not much. He mainly just advised me on what I needed to do. Apparently, they'll give me information bit by bit, only as much as I can handle while still being able to go about my life. This they have particularly emphasized. There are 3 things I am not allowed to mention yet, not until I muster true courage. It sounds strange when they talk, I can see the man's
7
lips
views
moving,
right now. Oh damn!
but it doesn't feel like
Thanks,
the sound
lurkers.
is coming in through my ears.
Even though my internet's going
It's
up and
as if-
down today, I apologize.
How should I put it? I perceive it
It must
with
be
all my
frustrating
senses. I understand it in a
to
strange
watch,
way.
and then it just suddenly stops.
I've thought about getting a piece of evidence from them, but I haven't asked.
Yeah, I think
because
it
every time I
has
meet
to
them,
be each an average of
somehow
3.
I don't feel like myself.
But I don't know how
I
it
am
works.
myself. For example, I can hear everything, the sounds of cars outside, the radio, and other noises. But I
Lurk
don't
is like
quite
you
feel
keep
bold
it in the
enough to ask
background
questions as a
running, even
human
if
would.
you're not watching.
They don't answer everything
It
either.
helps to
And for some things,
count as a
they say
viewer,
they will come back
basically,
to
for
it
the
later.
hours.
Then he told me some strange things.
Is that the alien, the
including
bald
something
guy?
about that little storage place. But I won't go into details.
Yeah, like just have
Apparently,
it open.
there's a part of the human body that our doctors still don't fully understand.
Even if you're like doing other stuff or like getting up and down.
And there are supposedly 3 types of their devices, or what we would call a UFO. The same object can apparently be seen in different ways. Oh,
Bald people
one more
aren't
thing.
aliens.
I asked him, isn't it possible to
bald
create
people are
these kinds of
aliens.
visions with drugs too?
Sigma to
said,
Sigma, can we
Maybe
rest?
someone secretly slipped me LSD. He responded,
Before
you'll
we
get
quite ran
definitive
over
proof.
me.
Go to the McKaylee library, find that specific book, and on this or that page, it will be written in this way. I said, I will do this. The following week, I went there and checked, and it was just as he had said. I also asked about
Do
smoking.
you have
whether
lore?
it
No,
was a
I don't
sin, and
have
he
like
just laughed.
a full-on
said
lore
strongly
yet.
that
I'm brand
religious
new. This is
matters
my
shouldn't
3rd
be
ever
mixed into this.
stream.
But they do have a connection. or
I'm
so they claim.
brand new. Whoa, I lost
I
track
asked
for a
if I was
second.
allowed to
I have a
talk
$5
openly about my
webcam, sorry.
experiences, and he said, you may tell, and you should tell,
Did
if
Bruce
you
get
only
given
dare.
drugs by an alien?
Seek contact with those who are genuinely interested in these matters. He also said this.
Technically,
Even
it's
if
your
people do
10th
not
stream.
believe,
Yeah, because
if
my,
you have the
my
courage, then tell.
internet kept going down like 10
I
times
said,
today.
I have no
Maybe
position
more.
or status to lose, even if I speak.
Hey, oh my, the whole mode,
He
so
said,
cute. Oh,
"They know that
Parisa,
you
it's
have
good to
little
see
to
you
lose.
again. How are you doing?
That's why many of these people remain silent.
Yeah, my internet's
though
been
these
going
things
down,
happen.
but I've been trying to
By
watch.
the way, they said
just
that one
watch
among your
YouTube and
people,
chill.
whom you know by the name of Jesus, was a tough man.
Tough man.
Not in those exact words, but that he was one of the great figures among humans.
Tough
He
man
also
is a
said
strange
that they had
translation.
existed long before humans.
Lore, cute cat girl kills people on DVD. Yeah, that's my
When
lore.
asked how he viewed life after these higher contacts,
I'm a
Covenant
vampire
said it
cat.
had freed him in many ways. It
Just
has
woke up,
freed me a
hope you're
lot.
doing great. I'm doing
I do
great.
not feel fear.
Except for my
I do
internet
not
going
get
down, but
startled.
it's whatever. I don't really
Generally,
care.
if someone suddenly shouts
just wanted to
loudly,
chill.
a person may flinch. But I don't anymore.
I'll be a fan then,
Fear
mostly
and
because I just
anxiety
like
have
cat girls.
disappeared,
Yay!
and I see something more in this life.
That's awesome.
I find it more important to develop oneself, perhaps through thinking, perhaps also through good company, if possible. Among other things, music.
This guy's editing is
especially
good. I
Beethoven's
like his
Fifth Symphony, the Symphony
like he
of
does
Fate.
art for all of his
I felt a
videos.
strong need to hear it.
I like cozy, spooky videos.
Looks like I'm connected to them
I
now.
love this edit.
I am not at all tired of
Reminds
this
me of
life,
that meme.
even though I have been promised that life will continue in some other body. I have been
have it
shown
though, but only
completely
on my
ordinary
laptop.
everyday things as if
Don't have my
beforehand.
login.
Among
Yes,
other
cozy.
things, a certain
Comfy
illness.
cozy.
The person sitting there showed it to me. I don't know where he got it from. It was just like, I asked, is it a bacillus or a bacterium?
How? Well, I'm
He just
cozy.
smiled and said,
It's like
"This was
it's
about
like
to
a
threaten
vibe,
you,
like a cozy
but we
vibe.
made it disappear.
Like listening to
They've given
stories
me the
by a
impression that
campfire
some
or
people
something
here are
on a
worthy
cold night.
to go with them.
Something
But
like that.
apparently this world, how did they put it,
Comfy
is the
cozy.
only place where humans have complete free will. I asked, don't you?
This is so
To
odd.
this, they said that we are bound by certain principles. I do not understand what restrains them.
How do you become
They
a mod?
answered,
I guess just
We
from
exist. We come
just
from
from
everywhere.
being active,
From
I
what
guess.
I gather, they're operating on a whole other level.
I mean, for Boongar, he was my first ever viewer,
According to
and he's
Covenant,
helped me a lot with
communication
settings and
happens
stuff.
in ways
So it's
other
like
than
I
physical
think I'll give
contact.
you mod since no one
Quite
has it,
often,
and
he receives
just
what
as
he
like a
calls
safety
thought
measure.
transmissions from the humanoids. These are short, maybe 10 to 15 seconds image flashes. The images appear on some light-colored surface.
and bold people.
Before this, Covenant receives a specific sound signal,
Cozy
which
video
serves as a
aliens,
cue
yeah. I mean,
for the
it's
arrival
cozy,
of
it's
the
comfy.
images. The humanoids
And
also told
spooky.
Covenant that, because of them, many people have ended up in mental hospitals. They have at times made serious mistakes when establishing contact with humans. Alright, let's wrap this up. A quiet rural town in Finland, a repairman with no interest in UFOs, and an egg-shaped craft that seemed to defy explanation. Toivo Kovanen's account might sound like a relic of the past, a strange story tucked away in an old book. But decades later, the similarities are striking, whether or not we choose to believe the whistleblowers. In a sensational revelation,
like just
Jake
in case
Barber,
too,
a
like
former
if there's
Air
like a
Force Special
bot or
Operations
spammer
airman,
or something like
told
that.
News Nation that he had worked in a classified unit
I'll be on the
tasked
stream
with recovering
24/7.
debris
Thank you,
from what he
Daydream.
believes were
I love
crashed
your name, by the
unidentified
way. It
flying
reminds me of that
objects.
song.
He described
Daydream.
materials with no engine, no thermal signature, and, in his words, not human.
Wait,
His
is
team
that
immediately
Grush?
recognized
That's
they
the
were
Grush,
dealing
is
with
it?
something extraordinary and anomalous.
Wait, was that David Grush?
Kovanen said he was left feeling
confused and
almost giddy, fulfilled and happy. But more than what he saw, he was left with a message.
You know, there's always 1 to 2 weirdos going
They urged him
around.
to
Really?
speak, even if people did not believe.
Well, I'm brand new, so I don't know.
To tell what he had seen, to seek out those who were willing to listen.
It's the alien.
Most remain silent, they said, even though these things happen.
You like that song too? Yeah, it's a good one. Ooh.
Many decades apart, across continents, the same eerie details surface.
Viewers, whoa.
By design or coincidence?
Is that a record?
Man-made or something else?
Hey, it's stayed up for a while so far.
If there's any truth to uncover, it might take a
I don't want to
whistleblower
jinx
to
it
bring
though.
it to light. So the question remains: are these stories just
oh
echoes
yeah,
of
they do say stuff like that. I'm used to that from games too. You hear that so much. Stories lost. Oh, yes, thank you.
In the late 1960s, a quiet corner of northern Finland
It's
became
always like
the
Finland
unlikely
or
stage
Sweden
for one
or
of the most
something.
mysterious
Maybe that's
UFO
where he's
waves
from.
in modern history. The remote region of Pudasjärvi, known for its endless forests and isolated fells, was suddenly thrust into the spotlight as dozens of witnesses reported strange glowing orbs, eerie magnetic disturbances, and inexplicable encounters that spanned months. From farmers and teachers to taxi drivers and curious townsfolk, sightings of unidentified flying objects captivated the region, defying all scientific explanation.
It's such a saturated question. Like you hear it so often.
The events at
and you should
Pudasjärvi
be
were
able to
not
tell
only
the
frequent,
difference too.
but disturbingly close.
I mean, maybe
Often
it'll
witnessed in
get harder to
remarkable
tell the
detail.
difference though with AI
Light
voice
orbs
changes and
danced
stuff
across the
nowadays. But it
skies,
used to be
hovered
so
above frozen lakes,
like
and moved with
distorted and
patterns so
scratchy
deliberate
that it was
they
so
seemed
easy to tell
almost
if someone had a voice changer.
Entire families woke
And people
in
would
the
still
middle of the
ask
night
it. It's like,
to
how
find
can you
their
not
homes
tell?
illuminated by strange beams of light. Even animals reacted, with dogs howling and frantically leaping at windows as these enigmatic objects appeared. What made Pudasjärvi unique wasn't just the number of sightings, but the sheer variety and duration of the encounters. Some were distant flashes of light, others were descending orbs and pear-shaped objects, and one person even claimed to have been picked up by an alien ship. The ripple effects extended far beyond Finland, sparking intrigue among researchers and skeptics alike. So what really happened in this secluded corner of the Arctic? Was it a natural phenomenon, a secret government project, or something else entirely? Join us on Stories Lost as we uncover the strange and chilling mystery of the Pudasjärvi UFO wave, where the skies were anything but ordinary.
See, is this not cozy? Don't you think so, Faye? Is the volume okay for the video? I turned it down a bit because I thought it was kind of loud, but maybe I'm too loud, I don't know.
In 1969, Finland experienced a surge in UFO sightings. Reports flooded in weekly, sometimes daily, across various regions. The hotspot was Pudasjärvi, about 100 kilometers northeast of Oulu. Here, sightings continued for at least 5 months.
I'll have to sort all that stuff out.
Initially, there were no officially documented close encounters in Pudasjärvi. However, the sightings attracted significant attention due to their exceptional duration and the large number of witnesses.
I'm in bed right now
Later,
listening to this.
Finnish ufology accounts claimed that a close
cozy.
encounter had
That's
indeed
not
taken
true.
place.
You're all cozy. You're in bed.
In
It's the
1971,
coziest.
2 Finnish brothers allegedly tried to shoot down a UFO in Pudasjärvi.
Sounds fun. Hi,
It would also
Shiki. Thanks
turn
for
out
lurking,
that
by the way. I
another
don't know if you
local
heard
man
me
claimed
earlier,
he was
but I said hey.
inside that very craft when the brothers shot at it.
Y'all
He
think
even said he
UFOs are
received the
real?
gift of healing from the
I
alien
think they're
beings,
probably
according to Finnish UFO
American
researcher
craft or something.
Tapani Koivula.
But there's so
We will
many
cover this in a bit.
abduction cases
But
that
now,
it's like, okay,
let's
what the
get
fuck
back to
is
how it all
this?
began.
Is it like a psychological
People
phenomena
had been
or
seeing
what?
unidentified
Like,
objects
there's
and lights
so
around
many,
Puducherry for years,
and they're really
and
interesting to watch. They're
1969 was no
entertaining.
different. The focal point was around the Iso Shota Fell, which reaches an altitude of 431 meters above
Has
sea
to be
level,
something outside
a
of us.
significant height in Finland, as there is no comparable
Gonna
elevation
give
further
me
south.
nightmares, oh Faye. You don't like spooky videos before bed?
The most remarkable sighting took place on September 8th,
Hey, Neko, hi,
1969,
Bronskin.
in the early hours of the morning.
How you doing,
Among the
doll?
witnesses was a taxi driver, Ate Serkala, who encountered the phenomenon
Oh yeah, this
while
is
driving
Finland, I
passengers through the
forgot.
countryside. His report, submitted to the Finnish UFO research organization, provided one of the most detailed descriptions of the event.
If they were, aren't they all
What began
dead
as a
by now?
distant light on the horizon soon developed into a series of strange
Oh,
and
thank you,
inexplicable
Shiki.
encounters over the course of
I
his journey.
appreciate you.
Serkala's account offers a step-by-step record of the sightings, starting with the first glimmer of light beyond the hills. Sighting location
Chilling,
1.
Hugo. What about you? Yeah, I'm just chilling too.
He observed a
I'm
bright
hoping my
light far
internet
ahead,
stays up. It's
beyond
been
some
going
hills.
down.
I had 6
Ooh.
passengers in my car.
Lights in the sky.
The light appeared to be an automobile light, visible from a great distance.
Can't wait
The
for the
first
non-test
sighting
streams. I
location
know,
was
right? That's when it really
approximately 19
begins.
kilometers from the final sighting location. Sighting location 2. We continued driving. About 1 kilometer further on, we saw another light on the side of the road. It appeared to be the
Ooh.
same light as before, but this time it was closer, as if it was looking directly at us. And then we started noticing that there were no other cars near the lights or on the road. At that point, we realized that these lights could not belong to any vehicle. There were no known cars there.
There's
The
so
lights
many
seemed
like
to be
this.
moving. Sighting location 3. We came up to the third location. At this spot, we stopped the car to observe the light, which appeared to be moving. Our curiosity was fully engaged by this point. We quickly resumed driving to get a better view of the light from higher ground. Sighting
Oh,
location
I don't know
4.
if I'm talking over it too much.
As we got closer, our excitement grew. The glowing orb was now directly in front of us, visible between the tops of the trees. It seemed to move slightly. Sighting location 5. We covered some ground and then we saw it again. The orb was similar to the previous one, but it was no longer glowing. Sighting location 6. We observed many bright small orbs that moved rapidly back and forth between Serkapere and a deep ravine near a mountain. They would rise swiftly from the ground, move in zigzag patterns, hover almost stationary, move sideways, then dive down again into the ravine between the hills. Against Pitamavara Hill, there was a slightly larger orb moving slowly toward Taivalkoski,
Music take? Do you
weaving
mean
in a
taste?
zigzag motion through the air. In the upper left, a large orb was visible within a cloud, noticeably larger than the others. Below this
Yeah.
orb
It's
was
the
another flat orb
customizable
with a smaller
Suica
one to
model.
its left. Sighting location 7. We then drove to the Serkivara village school. I woke up teacher Timo Lane and asked if he had a hunting rifle
Timo.
with a scope. He took it out and joined us. Teacher Timo Lane stepped outside with his wife to help us get a better
Yeah,
look
what
at whatever
Shiki
it
said.
was. Now they could see a large orb dimly visible
Oh,
within a
taste?
cloud.
I like
According to Lane, the
K-pop
orb
and
filled the
metal
entire
and
field of view
rap.
through the scope.
Like kind of a mix of
A
stuff.
smaller
What about
orb
you?
was also visible far to the right. It appeared to be moving toward Taivalkoski before disappearing on the horizon. The large orb began to shrink rapidly, as if it had suddenly accelerated upward at high speed. According to research by the Ulu UFO Society, the first sightings of this phenomenon on September 8th were reported at around 1 a.m.
Every country
at
has
both
a
Serkivara
UFO
and Ritinki,
investigation team or
approximately
something.
20 kilometers west of Serkivara. Witnesses observed a light in the eastern sky, larger than the moon. There was also a report from Kusamo of a light orb observed the same night at around 2
Hyperpop
a.m.
rap and whatever sounds good.
Teacher Timo
Ooh.
Lane, 28 years old, estimated that the largest orb was at most a few kilometers away. The large orb appeared moon-sized to the naked eye, filling almost the entire field of view through the scope. Smaller
Aliens came
orbs
to
were
Earth and didn't want
observed
to be seen.
hovering
There
in the
would be
ravine, with some as close as 2 kilometers from the observers. The exact number of small orbs is unknown,
This
but at
phenomenon
least 10
is
were
so,
seen,
like, such a rabbit
and
hole.
witnesses believe there may have been dozens. UFO researchers would later conduct radiation measurements at the presumed landing site of the small orbs,
Do you mean
but
what about
found no
Cali as
abnormal
in
levels.
for the investigation thing?
Interestingly, however, there is a
Yeah,
known
America
location near the
definitely has one.
observation area where compasses experienced strong magnetic disturbances, becoming completely unreliable. Professor Juhani Oxman, head of
There's
the
so many
electromagnetics
odd,
department
like,
at the University of Ulu, stated that no natural explanation fitting current
things that
scientific
happen in these
knowledge could be
cases
found
that,
for
like,
the
there's a lot
phenomenon.
of
The mysterious
similarities and
orbs
stuff. It's really
observed in
strange.
Puddasjärvi remain
Like the
unexplained
magnetic
UFOs. This
distortions
case,
and
however, was just one of many similar
interference.
incidents. Throughout the year and in the months that followed, sightings of unidentified lights and flying objects
I'm surprised
continued
my
in
internet's
Finland.
actually staying up now. I guess
The
it really
most
was a
UFOs
DNS
were
issue.
seen in the skies over Puddasjärvi during October, especially in the early part of the month. On October 5th, a UFO was seen at Inatajärvi, approximately 20 kilometers south of Särkivara. It was a marine blue S-shaped object, reported to be flying quite rapidly. It was clearly defined and emitted bright
The
light.
hell?
The
An
sighting occurred at
S-shaped?
1:30 a.m. On October
Guess it was
8th,
actually
a few
DNS
people leaving the
reset. Yeah,
Pintamo
maybe it
dance hall
was.
saw two large light orbs for about 5 minutes. The sighting occurred at 1 a.m. On October 14th, taxi driver Atte Serkala made another clear UFO
Firefly worm
sighting.
hybrid, yeah.
The incident began at 4:01 a.m. in the same location where he had observed the first light orb on September 8th. At several kilometers distance, a bright orb was visible above a cleared logging area. I stopped the car and
Yeah,
looked at the
pretty
phenomenon
sad.
with Mrs. Avanjärvi, who was with me. It started to rise and turned into a bright reddish-orange color, taking on a disc-like shape, and then rose into the
Oh,
clouds.
that's green.
As
not
we began
orange.
driving, it followed us at a distance of several kilometers and about 150 meters in altitude. It followed us the entire 18-kilometer journey to Särkivara. I estimate the object's diameter to have been about 10 meters. When we arrived at the Särkivara school, I woke up Mrs. Lane, but before she could see it, the object disappeared to the east. The following night, at 2:30 a.m., a sun-sized glowing orb was seen near Pikkusjote.
Sun-sized?
It flew
What?
faster than an airplane heading eastward.
Whoa.
In summary, regarding the incidents in September and October, all sightings were made after midnight. The UFOs never appeared very close to the witnesses. The usual distance was at least a kilometer. The objects were generally round in shape, bright, and glowing. During November and
I wish I
December,
saw an alien so I
UFOs
could
were no
lick
longer seen as
an
often as in
alien
October,
sheep.
and fewer reports were received. However, the incidents began
Must
to
have
take
been
on
the
a slightly
sun,
different
then.
character. Sightings were now made earlier in the evening, and the objects
Ew.
appeared to come closer to witnesses, sometimes within just 100 meters. On November 28th,
I
two
want to see the
separate
little
UFO sightings were
beings.
made.
That
In the
first
first
one we
case,
watched was
the
funny.
UFO was far away at first, but the observation period lasted nearly 2 hours. Around 10 p.m., farmer Kalle Lasala was sitting by the window of his house in Särkivara when he suddenly saw a bright light orb descending slowly straight down. He quickly woke his daughter, Aino Toivonen, who also observed the orb as it descended. The top of the orb emitted a wide beam of light directed toward the sky, which grew stronger the closer the orb came to the ground. The light
Yeah, I mean, it
orb
could be
landed behind a
anything.
ridge,
Like, could be
but the upward
so
directed
many
light beam
number of different
remained,
things.
strongly illuminating the surrounding area with a brightness comparable to daylight. The interior of Lasala's house was lit as brightly as during the day. The light beam was visible for 2 hours
I love
until it
these little
disappeared at midnight.
animations. Or the little art.
A second sighting occurred during the same event at 10:45 p.m., about 6 kilometers from Lasala's house. 4 electric orbs of light, each about half a meter in diameter, were observed near a power line, close to the ground. One of the light orbs was visible for about 5 minutes before turning off its lights,
Instead of
while the others
unidentified
vanished
flying
shortly
objects.
after being seen.
Unidentified freaky objects?
Later, teacher Timo Lane
Maybe
and
they
forest
are.
manager Apo Avanjärvi used a
My
compass to
viewers,
trace the direction
wow.
of the UFO's descent, as described by Lasala.
How is that possible?
This led them to a ridge and 2 forest ponds, one of which was in the
So
indicated
what an
direction.
alien. What if it was like all
The men
gross and
discovered
weird?
an open ring-shaped area in the middle of the pond, where water had melted through the ice. This phenomenon had never been observed at the pond before, but it is not certain whether the UFO had hovered directly above it. However, the direction matched the sighting.
Okay,
On
more
December
evidence.
13th, another intriguing incident occurred.
Jeez,
Forester
how many?
Heino Verila, 30 years old, his wife Elsa Verila, and soldier Ahti Kova were driving toward Sarakala, near Yakalavara. Slightly before 7 p.m.,
Would
they
even have
noticed a bright
reproductive
light
system?
descending
Yeah,
from the
that's a
sky.
question.
After driving less than half a kilometer, an unusual light suddenly appeared from the right side of the road, moving directly in front of the car. The driver braked
Well-
immediately, fearing the illuminated object would pass
Oh, I've
under the
seen
car,
other ones like this too.
or
that's-
rather, that the car would drive under it. The object was spindle or cone-shaped,
Ew,
about 50
Faye.
centimeters wide and 150 centimeters tall, including a small downward-facing flame.
Well, some of these
The upper
cases
part
are
glowed
like
red,
they're
while the
literally
lower
just
section was
humans.
dark, with the flame
They're like, oh,
directed
it's an
downward,
alien, but it looks like
as though
exactly
from
like
a
a human.
decelerating rocket motor. The object hovered about half a meter above the ground and maintained a steady distance of 50 to 60 meters ahead of the car. The car's speed had to be reduced significantly, though it did not slow to as little as 20 kilometers per hour, as the passengers were reluctant to approach too closely. Fear mixed with curiosity filled the car. After about 3 kilometers of driving, the object suddenly ascended into the light beam of the car and veered off the road. Nearly at the same time, the car's headlights
Oh, that
illuminated a man
sounded
walking
weird in my
along the road,
headphones.
heading in the same direction
That
as the
whooshing
object.
sound.
The object seemed to
Was it
notice
good?
the man, abruptly rising sharply into the air and
It was an
veering left,
Uber.
taking cover in the forest. By then, the object had flown about 2.8 kilometers in front of the car. This case was unusual because the unidentified flying object was observed in front of the car. UFOs typically follow vehicles from behind. Its appearance was unconventional, and the witnesses were reliable, making the case
From
difficult
behind,
to
what?
dispute. Additionally, the civil defense manager of Pudasjärvi
What
visited
if
the
it's a
scene
crow
to
with
conduct a
lights attached
radiation
to it
survey.
in the sky?
The start of a new decade did not mark the end of UFO sightings in Pudasjärvi.
Finna
Reports
get your
continued into the
freak on the crow.
1970s. The first notable sighting occurred on January 8th.
I'm every
Housewife
UFO
Seni
sighting.
Ritinki, around 12 noon, was on her way to a neighbor's
Ooh.
house to do laundry. As she reached the roadside, she experienced one of the most startling events of her life. Looking southward into the bright daylight sky, she saw an enormous pear-shaped light formation stretching across the road and reaching the height of a telephone pole. It hovered
Looks
just
like
above the ground, emitting a strong red beam
think
of light
she's
from its
the
lower
alien.
section. The brightness of the UFO was so intense that it blinded Mrs. Ritinki.
No, Mrs.
Frightened,
Ritinki.
she ran back home to get others to see the phenomenon. However, no one else was nearby except her son, Perdy Ritinki, who soon joined her.
Ritinki.
By the time he arrived, the UFO had moved off the road just as a
looks
mail
like
bus
a
was
boob.
approaching. It was now only visible in the forest, about 100 meters from the witnesses. The object soon moved
Mrs.
deeper into the
Ritinki,
forest
no.
and disappeared. A similar pear-shaped UFO was seen 2.5 hours later in Latavara, about 20 kilometers away, observed by mail and school bus drivers.
Oh no, mail bus driver.
On January 28th, another sighting occurred at Serkivara, where multiple UFOs were observed. This
Mrs.
event resembled the
Kinky.
sightings of September 8th. At 1:40 a.m., Eetu Serkala, 19 years old, noticed his living room filling with a pulsing light. Looking outside, he saw a bright
Oh, really?
moon-sized orb hovering over Serkapara Hill, its glow shining through the window. He quickly woke his father to witness the phenomenon. The large
It's
orb
the
stopped,
moon.
and 4 smaller orbs detached from it. The last of these smaller orbs turned
Ooh.
away briefly, before returning near the larger orb. The orb dimmed, then moved eastward, ascending as it disappeared into a cloud. The smaller orbs descended and faded. The sighting lasted 7 minutes.
The moon and 4
About 3 hours
suns.
earlier, at 10:30 p.m., Salma Ramstedt and Aune Valkonen had observed a large red orb over a nearby hill.
Is this all in the same
It
place?
moved up and down repeatedly, before eventually vanishing into the clouds.
The title of the video, clickbait: Man's gunshot at UFO leads to devastating consequences. Yeah, where's the gunshot? It
On the
must be
final night of
like
January,
the last one.
numerous dancers returning from a nearby event witnessed a UFO at the
gonna
Peria
shoot
Road
it.
intersection. There were a large number of witnesses. That night, electricity was cut off across a wide area. A UFO was seen near a main power line, and dogs were also hysterical during this night. According to Finnish UFO researcher Tapani Koivula, one of the most sensational incidents in Pudasjärvi's UFO history occurred in the winter of 1971, when two Finnish brothers allegedly attempted to shoot down a UFO. Later, a local man contacted Tapani and claimed he had been inside the craft, where he received the gift of healing from alien beings. A Finnish man sometimes responds to UFO encounters like the U.S. Air Force by bringing in heavy weaponry to ensure security, Koivula says.
The light bulb out.
According to him, this is what happened in Pudasjärvi when two brothers, Heino and Seppo Kellolampi, encountered UFOs while clearing snow.
Is this all the same time? That's fucking crazy. In the same place?
The men worked as snowplow operators, clearing local roads with a tractor. Within a short period, UFOs appeared several times, again and again. Soon, the brothers began to feel threatened. Eventually, the older brother declared that if they showed up again, he would take his hunting rifle and shoot, Koivula recounts. When the younger brother later went out to plow the road again, he returned in a panic, running inside and shouting, "Now those devils are here."
The devils.
The older brother, true to his word, grabbed his hunting rifle from the wall and ran outside in just his underwear, despite the minus 20 degrees Celsius cold, to open fire.
Oh my god.
His younger brother, meanwhile, bolted straight under the bed. He fired multiple shots and was convinced he had hit the UFO, yet it still vanished into the sky. After the shooting, both men were out on the road, searching on their hands and knees.
That info wasn't needed.
Their wives and children later recalled that they believed the rifle was such a powerful weapon that logically, there should have been at least some UFO debris on the ground, but nothing was ever found. The case took a strange turn in 1997 when, at a UFO seminar in Pudasjärvi, a local man named Untu Leinonen approached Koivula. He claimed to have been inside the UFO 3 times, including the night the brothers shot at it. The beings, described as slender, about 160 centimeters tall, and wearing protective suits that covered everything but their faces, reacted with shock when the bullets started flying. They asked Unto, "Why are they shooting?" Koivula says. All Untu could do was respond, "We are so primitive." What made Unto's testimony particularly compelling was that his description of the aftermath matched almost word for word what one of the brothers, Seppo Kellolampi, had privately told his cousin Anja, a local UFO researcher who had never met Unto, before his death. Shortly after the shooting, the UFO landed in the brothers' yard, hovering a few meters above the ground. 3 beings floated out of the craft. One of them engaged Seppo Kellolampi in a long conversation.
Wait, what the fuck?
With eerie calmness, the being informed Seppo that he would soon die, Koivula recounts. What made it even more unsettling was that the entity seemed to know Seppo's personal affairs in great detail. And yet, the tone of the conversation remained wise and gentle, not menacing. When the conversation ended, 2 of the beings floated back into the craft.
I wouldn't want to be under
that thing. But the third took an unexpected route.
I wouldn't want to be anywhere near
it drifted toward a nearby tree, and instead of returning to the UFO, vanished into the sky through the branches. The beings also had another message for the brothers. They would die in the near future.
Okay,
Supposedly, this wasn't meant as a punishment, but as a warning about their poor health, Koivula explains.
Maybe it's because the UFO
a few years later, both passed away from sudden seizures. Unto, meanwhile, claimed the beings had given him a gift, the ability to heal. He practiced it for the rest of his life.
Why didn't he heal the brothers?
His reputation as a healer even spread beyond Finland. He even told me he had treated Boris Yeltsin himself, Koivula recalls. There was never any evidence to suggest the beings had caused the brothers' deaths. After all,
you die in the future.
Concludes, the creatures had only known better than humans. And so, the Pudasjärvi UFO wave leaves us with a story as strange as the northern skies where it unfolded. For months, glowing orbs darted across the treetops, hovered over ponds, and lit up the lives of those who witnessed them. The accounts were vivid, the details often uncanny. But as with so many UFO stories, the evidence falls short of answering the big question. What were they? Were these sightings the work of anything unearthly? Or were they just natural phenomena misunderstood by the human mind?
I mean, the
The
top
truth,
right one could
as
be
always,
ball
is hard to
lightning.
pin down.
Apparently that's a thing.
Sure, there's no denying the genuine awe and confusion felt by those who saw these lights.
None of
But
them had a
without physical
camera.
proof, no spacecraft,
Yeah, they
no
never
artifacts,
do.
it's easy to see why skepticism surrounds the events. Still, it saddens us when people outright dismiss it. The Puducherry wave isn't just about what was seen. It's
they're
about
all
how it
on
made people
drugs.
feel. In a world that often demands certainty, these sightings reminded us of the thrill of the unknown, the pull of the mysterious. Whether you believe it was aliens,
Get the blurry
experimental
camera.
aircraft, or simply nature playing tricks, the legacy of Puducherry lies in its ability to spark wonder and debate.
Ooh,
Welcome to part 1.
that one was good. Look how many I've watched. What the hell? Oh, he has like members only stuff too. Oh. Compilation. This is an hour and a half. I like the encounters one more. They're more interesting than I don't really care about the UFO craft stuff. I guess whatever. Nordics encounter strange beings for decades. Oh, in the Nordics. Okay. Oops, I accidentally just downloaded it.
Contact persons. Who are they? Visionaries? Hoaxers? Or just people who happen to be in the wrong place at the right time? Over the years, stories of individuals claiming to have had direct interactions with alien beings have been met with
Faye's
everything
gonna have
from
nightmares for
fascination
sure.
to outright ridicule. These so-called contactees often describe vivid encounters, spaceships, alien visitors, and messages for humanity that somehow always seem to mix cosmic wisdom with just a pinch of human eccentricity. What sets these stories apart isn't just the extraordinary claims, it's the people behind them. Contactees often share a peculiar trait, the sense that they've been deliberately targeted, picked out for reasons they might not even understand. Whether you believe them or not, one thing is certain. They are unshakably convinced of what they've experienced. So do these tales offer genuine glimpses of something beyond our understanding? Or are they just elaborate stories cooked up by those looking for attention? Well,
Yeah, you gotta pay attention.
as always, that's for you to decide. For now, let's take a closer look at one such case from Finland.
I don't know what that is. Oh, another one from Finland. This has to be where he's from or something. I like the little intro sound. It sounds like the old UFO sounds, like the.
This
Oh, it reminds me
remarkable
of
case begins
X-Files.
with Lili Nilsson,
Such a good show.
a Finnish-born woman whose extraordinary encounters with strange beings
Quiz at the end of
spanned
the
decades.
stream.
Here we have Lili, captured in a black and white photograph set in what appears to be a snowy forest. She is dressed in a heavy fur-lined coat and a matching hat,
You gotta sleep.
clothing
Oh, okay.
suitable
Get
for the
some
cold
rest, Faye.
environment.
Thanks for
Her
hanging out.
expression appears serious and
Good
focused.
night. Sleep well.
The contrast
Don't
between
have
her
nightmares.
figure and the dark, wintry background
Oh, not right
emphasizes
now.
the quiet gravity of
Soon,
the
though.
moment. Who took this picture? It could
You
very
can
well
fall
have been
asleep to
Thorvald
it.
and Margareta Berthelsen.
Just don't have nightmares.
The married couple were enthusiasts of UFO phenomena and had learned of Lili's story through word of mouth. Intrigued by whispers of her encounters with otherworldly beings and unexplained aerial phenomena,
Yeah, I want to see the
they
beings.
sought her out to hear
I wanna
her
see the
account
weird little
firsthand.
beings.
Their conversation, that touched upon
Fall
Lili's
asleep to
vivid
this?
descriptions
Yeah.
of space people and
Cozy.
mysterious sightings, became the basis for an
You want
article
me to have
published in
nightmares?
UFO
No.
Information, 1974.
Are
issue
you
number
easily
2.
scared by stuff? I'm not.
In the beginning of their
I
article,
like spooky
they
stuff.
justify the publication and caution their audience.
What do you mean by that?
Mrs. Lili Nilsson has,
Cozy.
over the course of more than
Because you're
3
in bed, you're
decades,
warm and cozy
repeatedly
and comfy.
experienced
It's
peculiar
comfortable.
occurrences of a UFO nature.
It's like a vibe. It's like a.
As is often the case
No.
with so-called contact stories, it is difficult to obtain full evidential value for the events described, particularly in the absence of witnesses. However, we believe that what Mrs. Nilsson has to share
Wait, does that mean you
possesses
usually
so
have
many
nightmares?
intriguing qualities that it is well worth publishing. It is up to the individual reader to judge and evaluate the account for
I
themselves.
don't know if they would. It seemed like they'd
Now
be too
we will let Lily
advanced.
herself continue to tell us the rest.
Like more brain, less body,
When I was 3 years
maybe.
old, I lived with my parents in Ingermanland, south of Finland, Mrs. Nilsson recounts. In early July 1939, my cousin, who was a year younger than me, and I went out to pick wild strawberries at the edge of the forest. We got lost and couldn't find our way home. It got late, and as dusk fell, we became tired and sleepy. We sat down by some bushes near a clearing in the woods. As we sat there, almost dozing off, my cousin suddenly said, "Look, there's something strange over there."
Oh god, this is
It
kind of
was
scary.
something white and misty, floating in the distance. Then, clear outlines emerged of something that looked like a man's hat, but much larger. As we watched this, a man approached us. As
It's a
far as I
short
can remember,
person. Oh, look
he
at him,
was
he's
dressed
bald
in
again.
some sort of white overall. He came up to us and said we shouldn't be afraid because our parents would be here soon. He stood with us for a while until we heard calls and shouting from deeper in the forest, and I recognized my mother's voice.
15
"Yes,
5-second dreams?
that's your mother," said the strange man, and then he walked toward the clearing and the hat-like object. It spun around in some way and then disappeared.
Okay.
As a child, I didn't understand what it could have been, but as an adult, I now realize that it wasn't a guardian angel, but a real person who had seen our plight and came to our aid. Someone who came from above. The incident
Daydream,
is
you're
deeply
damn bad
etched
for
in my memory.
aliens.
My parents didn't see the man, only a mist-like object that rose and disappeared. The next time I saw something similar was in 1951, after we had moved to a place called Lermarken in Sweden. In
Oh, it's
May of that
Sweden
year,
now.
my parents and I saw spherical objects in the sky several times. "Look," said my father. "It seems like the man in the moon has come down."
Oh?
It was a glowing orb, about the size of a football, moving across the sky. We continued to see them one at a time during the afternoons. In July of the same summer, bell-shaped objects appeared. We saw these during evenings and nights. They looked like a bell with a dome on top. At the very top of the dome, there was something transparent that flickered with a reddish light about every 2 seconds.
The sizing
This part at the
claims are
top
strange
looked
to
as
me.
though it was made
How
of glass.
can you tell the size?
On the underside, there
Like,
appeared
you
to
wouldn't
be
be able to
3
tell if it's
indentations
big
or
and far
protrusions.
away or small and
I
close.
spoke with
Like,
my
you can't
parents about
tell
it.
that.
But they said it was probably balloons, likely in an effort to keep me from dwelling on what they might actually be.
Or if they're
These
just
later
exotic
objects seemed to
animals.
float, and at times they made sudden jerking movements. They also displayed abrupt course changes. We couldn't hear any sound from them. Sometimes they circled above our secluded farm, and when they appeared, they didn't come from any specific direction. Occasionally, they hovered over a nearby bog some distance from the farm. Other times, they seemed to materialize out of nowhere, suddenly just there above us. One occasion that same summer, I was out on the bog picking cloudberries when I twice saw one of these objects descend
a
into the river that
cloudberry?
flows past the bog. It remained submerged for over an hour before rising back out of the water. At that time, I was about 200 meters away and estimated the object's length to be around 5 meters. Its
See,
shape
like,
was
you
the
can
same as the
estimate that a
objects
little
that had
better
previously
if you
circled
know
above
how
our farm.
big that river thing is.
We
But, like, when it's in
continued to
the
see these
sky,
objects during the
it's way
following winter
harder.
as well. There is an air corridor that runs over the area, and sometimes we could see commercial airplanes
berry that's a
accompanied by these
cloud.
crafts,
Is
one
it
on either
edible?
side of the airplane.
I've never
They
heard
would
of that.
occasionally catch up to and overtake the plane, while at other times they would lag slightly behind.
Oh, that's
These
scary.
sightings occurred at such a high altitude that we perceived the objects as disc-shaped. In daylight, they had a metallic sheen and reflected sunlight.
And the shape would be
while at night,
distorted
they
too,
glowed.
because it would look
On
different
some
from different
occasions, they
angles,
also
probably.
appeared in a reddish-brown color.
Like, if you look at a stealth
During the
bomber, it
afternoons
looks
in
like a
July and
UFO,
August,
like a
larger
disc-shaped
cigar-shaped
thing from a
objects
certain
began to
angle.
appear, reddish-brown in color. We estimated their length to be about 40 meters, and their thickness about 4 meters. Rows of round portholes were visible along their sides. Our dog reacted strangely to these objects. He wouldn't eat and refused to go outside. Similarly, our horse behaved oddly when one of these long objects flew overhead. The horse would stand completely still, and it took significant effort for my father to get it moving again after such flyovers. Sometimes these objects descended onto the bog and stayed there, on one occasion for
Where
an
are you
hour
from
and 20
again,
minutes,
Faye?
before rising and flying away. My father believed they were secret weapons being tested by the military. Before landing on the bog,
Maybe.
they would hover motionless in the air
Oh,
for
right,
3 to
California,
4
I
minutes.
forgot. Yeah, no, I remember
No
now.
sound came from these large cigar-shaped crafts. My father eventually forbade me from going to the bog to pick berries. There might be radioactive contamination there, he said. These objects, both the bell-shaped and the cigar-shaped ones, reappeared regularly every year throughout the 1950s and 1960s
What the hell?
until
They saw so many
1968.
of them?
In connection with these sightings, fighter jets often showed up in the area shortly afterward. Sometimes, we could count up to 5 planes.
In the Milky Way?
In 1953, I was cycling down to the village on an errand when I suddenly felt a sudden warmth on my body. At that moment, I didn't notice anything, but a craft must have flown over me, because shortly after, I saw one land on a ridge farther away. It extended some landing legs toward the ground. A hatch opened, and a ladder was lowered. 4 individuals came out of the machine, carrying strange objects on their backs, resembling the gear of scuba divers. They walked around and poked at the soil, presumably taking samples. I became so frightened that I grabbed my bike and fled. From what I remember, they were